Now let's just have one big discussion. What's your best thoughts from your group, or worst, and you want to put someone out there? Either is acceptable. Oh, we're doing a microphone. Would you like to start, Skylar, since you have the microphone? What was your? It's not on. Yeah. Here. You can't let the Stevens do all the talking. It's like, surely. Did you have a thought?
We were just talking about at my table, like the word slave seems like a little bit extreme beyond just a servant in order to be first.
So you're critical of the text. You don't like it so much. No, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. It is quite extreme, and maybe that's meaningful. To go even from servant to slave. It's an escalation. The text escalates to like a permanent status, as opposed to someone who chooses to serve, or serves as a job, versus a person who gives their whole entire self to the service of another and is bound by that. Powerful. What else?
In our group, we were trying to like discuss it on.
See what I mean? See what I mean? Just straight to it. Anyway, if you're good, you're good, Isaiah. Do what you got to do.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were trying to unpack like the mother dynamic between the two sons and like the mother going to Jesus and asking. We're like trying to figure out like, is this a self-preservation thing of like the mom trying to like weasel her way into?
So as a young man with a mother and a brother, how would you feel if you were in this situation?
Like my mom going to Jesus?
Correct. Yes, your mom going to Jesus is saying, do some stuff for my sons.
Oh,
right?
I don't know. Well, yeah, I think like, what's the motive of her like doing that? I think that's interesting to think about. Like, is it self-preservation? Because her sons gave up jobs to like follow this broke Messiah around, and that probably means like maybe no babies for them. Like what's the no grandchildren? Like what's the motive behind here?
Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah, good.
Just a little thing.
Great observations. Yeah. Who else? Over here. Of course, another Stevens. just from a different line here, different path.
Those verses are what stood out to me too, from the mother's perspective.
Okay.
Mothers wish blessing over their sons, and how bold the mother was to go right to Jesus and say, "Hey, how about this for my guy?"
Right.
It just resonated with my mother's heart. I would, if I had been in that position, I would have wanted to go running to him for Jeremy too.
Yeah.
I don't know about the whole preservation of the line or anything, but
this is very good. We're entering the text in an emotional way. I think being honest and saying, as a mother, I understand this, and as a teenage son, maybe this is super uncomfortable and awkward. But thanks, Mom. But never do that again. I mean, whatever the feelings they would feel, probably. Excellent. Yeah, up here.
I off the bat got really fixated on where Jesus says, "Can you drink from the cup I'm going to drink? Like, can you be viciously tortured and murdered?" And they're like, "Yeah, we can." And he goes, "Oh,
love that. That's our favorite thing. Yeah,
you will indeed drink from my cup." I know he goes on, but just like that part of Jesus always catches my eye. I don't know if that's a good thing.
No, it's great. And it's clear they don't know what they're saying. They don't know what they're agreeing to at this point. Nobody does. The mom doesn't. Disciples don't. But he does. And so he chooses not to reveal the fullness of what that means, but he's asking, like, are you willing to pay the price, whatever that price is? And at this point, that's probably enough. That's probably all you can do. I think we're all in process with God. It's not like if he showed you the full extent of your suffering that you would do in his namesake, you might run, from the jump. So there's a kind of grace that God shows us by giving us challenges in time, a progression of challenges or whatever. He's not trying to dissuade them here. He's not saying you're arrogant for saying you can't. There's just a lot of things not being said here. There's no correction of mom. There's no anger towards even the jockeying over position. It's just a want to correct what that means and what it is you think you're asking for. What else?
We were also talking about how it's interesting that they asked for that and Jesus gives it to them or says that they'll have it, but then they won't get the thing that they kind of wanted, which is to be on his right or left. So it's like you will still receive that suffering or drink that cup, but your idea of what it means to be great, you're not going to get that. It'll be something different.
Does he say that though? Does he say they won't get that?
That's not good.
He said, I don't know. Or I can't tell you if you will or won't. So even that's interesting. I mean, I think if I'm more Machiavellian reading of it, I think he leaves it open. He wants them still wanting it. He leaves he's like, somebody's going to get those seats for sure, guys. So good luck. May the best man win. May the best brothers win. That's interesting, though. I mean, part of it is him kind of saying it's not up to me, which is interesting, too, because, of course, it is up to him in a very Trinitarian way. But in another way, he's teaching submission. He's teaching what it looks like to be somebody who just does what you're told and who follows orders and is dutiful, a dutiful son. Baker?
Yeah. This isn't an observation. It's just a question based off of that. So after that part, like at the end, it kind of seems like Jesus gives them instruction for like how to, get those seats that they want.
Yeah.
Is that a correct thing? Or is he,
I like that. That's a good way to say, I'm going to give a question, which is like, you're going to make a statement and at the end go, am I right? I'm right though, right?
fair enough?
I think you are right, Ryan. I mean, I think he's not, and again, I don't know what Hannah you said last week, but the desire to be great is not being corrected here. It's a good thing to want to be great at some level, in some way. That yearning inside us as human beings to matter, for your life to have been significant, is not a problem for Jesus at all. But how does one achieve that? And what does the shape of greatness take? What does it look like? From where is it derived? And I think he's trying to say it comes this way. It's different than you think it is, but still want it. But to go on that path, it's a completely different path than you're expecting. Maybe even that you're wanting. But nevertheless, it's a good thing. Anyone else? Okay. Jeremy, were you say something?
Yep.
Jeremy just carries his own microphone.
I just have my own.
He doesn't need your.
Maybe just off of that, just that theme of authority throughout this text, that the sons are trying to get like a position of authority, but they're acknowledging that Jesus still has authority. They're not trying to say they're equal with him. They're saying like, no, alongside you or beside you or just underneath you in the org chart. But then Jesus himself also demonstrates like submission to authority of the Father. So yeah, like there's not a question about is authority evil inherently. But there is different ways in which authority shows up in the world, and the nations operate a certain way. Not so with you.
Yeah,
the authority is not a problem, and Jesus is even modeling that in the text. And but it is a question like, so then, how do we really enter into that place of authority and not follow the way of the nations? Because that's literally everybody else operates that way.
Exactly. I mean, there is obviously a very strong prohibition against what the way it gets rendered here is exercising authority, but the right way to say it is power over, power over. A single word, a single very useful word is the word dominion or domination. So to have power over another person, to exercise power, so to use it, exercise is like there's an actionable component here. To use power over another person is totally prohibited in the kingdom and in kingdom leadership. I think we disobey a lot of Jesus' commands in modern Western Christianity. This has to be top 1, 2, or 3 of the most disobeyed thing that Christians do. With impunity, without regard. We hire people that do this. We reward people. We pay them salaries. We elevate them as heroes. I don't know who's to blame for that. Is it systemic? Is it us because we want it, we support it? Is it them for taking the role? I suppose we're all complicit at some level. But to give people power over us is one thing, but for them to use that power over us is totally prohibited. I mean, again, this is a command. Not so with you is a command that he's giving his followers. And it gets preserved here in this incredible little story in the canon of Scripture because we're all supposed to continually not do it. And again, it's not about authority. It's about the application of power over a person. It's about exploitation. It's about taking advantage. It's about gaining from other people serving you. Jesus is saying the Son of Man did not come to be served. And so if we set ourselves up in any way, systematically, to be continually served by other people, to have them do things for us, to create a world where we are the ones receiving the fruit of their labor. This is a this is a real problem. This is not what I wanted to talk about, by the way, but Jeremy put me on it. So I hope we know that, though. I hope that would have been coming in knowledge we would have had, or I hope you have heard me say some version of that before this moment, but it's there and it needs to be honored. That very strong prohibition. Another Sanders wants to talk, so this will be the last comment. Better be good, man.
Sorry, I know I'm late to the party, but no, I just wanted to say the part where he said where the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with their 2 brothers. Like,
have you ever been indignant?
Yeah. And
Okay.
I'm mad because you asked first and I didn't ask.
Yeah.
Or like your mom asked, really, but it was like,
Get your mom under control, man.
yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was just something like
Great point.
obviously they all wanted it, but it was going without saying.
That's a great point. So it's not just that Salome wants it for her sons. It's that they're happy at one level. Maybe it's awkward, maybe they're embarrassed, but also they're not like, "Mom, shut up." They're happy for her to try to get that for them. But then the others are angry because they want it to. And it reveals something in everyone's heart. There is this kind of twisted ambition that we all have, which maybe that's part of what Jeremy's bringing up, is because there's that twisted ambition to have power over. I mean, the word katakurion, which is that lorded over, such an awkward rendering here. They lord it over them. What does it even mean? There's no object to it. It's just a weird. But katakurion is like to be Lord. Kurios is like that's Jesus. That's supposed to be we're meant to only have one Lord. It's a godlike role. It's a human being playing the lordship role and over. So tricky stuff. And we all kind of want to be that. We all want to, like, maybe I'll pay my dues and serve for a while so that I can be the one that gets served. And Jesus is like, even I don't do that. Even I don't do that. I think the misunderstanding driving this whole story is that greatness, by the way, the word greatness there is megas. It's where we stored mega, This is big. It's like largeness. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. To want to be bigger than you are is not wrong. And I think like the desire to have a bigger life, bigger impact, whatever. It's like, there's something there for us to chew on. But the misunderstanding driving the whole story is that bigness, that greatness is derived through the accumulation and exercise of power. And mom is planning for that. She expects that. The rest of them believe that. But Jesus he does want them to be great. He just knows that they don't yet see what the kingdom is and where greatness is really derived. I mean, there is such a thing that a person that lives a great life, a big life. And I want to press us this morning to wish to have a big life. But you got to figure out how to get there. A way in which heaven itself looks at your life and says, now that's something to look at, Can you drink the cup I would drink? He asks. Will you lay down your life for that kind of greatness? And it comes, he will reveal through and in the name of and nature of the Father through sacrificial love for people. That's how it comes. Love that lays down its life for others. It gives everything of itself to another. I mean, this big concept is lived out in the simplest ways, serving. Do you serve people? It's a very easy text to apply, to walk out of here and do. And it's a very easy text to assess your own life. How often are you the subject of service? How often do you receive service? And how often are you the person serving another? And this little phrase, not so with you, serves in the text as a fulcrum. So if you don't know what a fulcrum is the point on which a lever rests. So if you can imagine, I'm just going to like a seesaw. And the fulcrum is the point in which that seesaw rests, that lever rests. And it divides the text into two ideas, both kind of converging and diverging from the text. So if I say not so with you, then you have to ask the question, it begs the question, what am I not supposed to do? And then what am I supposed to do in replacing of it? So I'm not supposed to do this, so then I'm supposed to do this instead. And so the first half is about that. It's about this idea of rulers. And rulers who rule over rather than rule from under, I suppose, or they take their rule and they somehow create dominion. They create domination over other people. And I think the best word, honestly, the best word to use here is the word power. And I think our relationship to power is very important. In the one hand, let's just take this little imaginary fulcrum I've created, this little seesaw. On the one hand, you can sort of accumulate power. And if you make moves, power moves, that moves you toward power. Okay, so power's down here. Let's just call it that, right? So the more weight you put on this side of the board, the more you move towards power. You gain power, right? But if you do that over here, this part over here, we're going to call this greatness, kingdom greatness. And so every time you accumulate power and the exercise of power, you move yourself toward power, you move away from greatness. Do you understand? You become less great. You become petty. You become small. You become insignificant in heaven. He is setting this up as a dualism. You gain this, you lose this. You gain this, you lose this. And so how is it that you gain greatness? How does greatness come to a person? He's saying you do it by not exercising power. So now this is really important. So in other words, you have to have some power, but not exercise it over other people. Okay, So the idea is not to be powerless. Because to be powerless, you can neither be great nor powerful. Your board is just sort of flat, I suppose. You're moving towards neither. But to have power, some kind of agency, some gift to give, some resource, some idea, intelligence, time, whatever it is, to have that. And instead of using it for yourself or over other people, to somehow give it to another. This is the transfer of power to another, is the act of service. To say that I have energy, I could do something for someone in this next moment. And then I ask you, how can I help you? What can I do for you? That is to take the power that I have and to exercise it on your behalf. Not for my gain, but for your gain. That's what it means to be a servant. Servants are people with power. They're people with something to give. And so to report, in a sense, for duty and to say, I'll serve, I'll give you some of what I have, some of my power, my time, my energy, my gifts, whatever they are. What that does is that instead of just dumping your power into the garbage, I suppose, emptying yourself of power, to give it to another means that act of servanthood is moving that board towards greatness. It's releasing power, so you have less power because you've given it away. For example, you have an hour to give, and there's a certain, energy in that. And if you give that hour to another person, now it's theirs to use as they will. And so something there gains something and you lose something. But in the losing of it, you become great. This is the act of being a servant. I mean, the bully on the playground who lords it over you simply because he's bigger. And there's nothing you can do about it. The teacher in the classroom who shuts the student down simply because they're older. The principal of the school who shuts the teacher down. The school board who shuts down the principal. This is how the world works. It's hierarchy. Simple hierarchy. And Jesus is saying, this is not what I've shown you. And if you want to be great, if you want a large life, if you want a big life, you have to serve. You have to give away your power to other people. The strong kid who serves the weak kid, looks out for the weak kid. The teacher who serves the student, the principal that serves the teacher. Guys, to want greatness, but not power. This is the whole puzzle. So I know some of you were like, I'm going to be honest, I don't care for either. I don't really need power, but I also don't really care. I just play video games. And that's, not good either. To want to be somebody, to want your life to matter, and at the same time to not want more power. This is the trick. And there's really nowhere else to look for an image of that, an impression of that than Jesus and people like him. He's clear, you serve. Look, if you want greatness, how do you do it? You relinquish power and you give it to other people, but not just to serve, but to become a servant as your identity. It's just who you are. And that means giving your life away. All of us can serve. I mean, people, if you've ever been a waiter at a restaurant or something like that, your job is to serve. It doesn't mean you're a servant. We've all had probably people wait on us that didn't want, you could tell they didn't want to or didn't care about you as a person necessarily. There's different ways to do it, but to be yourself a servant is totally different. I think this is a very good aspiration. It's a desire to be close to Jesus, to reflect the nature of God himself into the world, looking for him. Do you remember the story? I mean, you remember John 13, where it said, this is the end of Jesus' life. This is the upper room. He's saying, he realizes who he is and where he's going and that his life is going to end. And in one last final theatric gesture, he washes his disciples' feet. Do you remember this? And in that gesture, he says, I'm going to show you different renderings, but John gets rendered sometimes the full extent of his love. Now, let me show you this. And so he physically wants to show them what Paul is trying to explain in Philippians 2. So John 13, Philippians 2 are very much mirror texts. I thought of this little book by Sinclair Ferguson on those last moments. And this is what he gives us, this parallelism, this what Jesus symbolically, theatrically acts out in the physicality of that moment of washing their feet, Paul would later try to describe theologically. Listen to them side by side. John 13, Jesus knowing he had come from God. Philippians 2, though he was in the form of God. John 13, he rose from supper. Philippians 2, he did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped. John 13, he laid aside his outer garments. Philippians 2, he emptied himself. John 13, and taking a towel. Philippians 2, taking the form of a servant. John 13, he poured water into a basin. Philippians 2, he humbled himself. John 13, he began to wash the disciples' feet. Philippians 2, he became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. John 13, he put on his outer garments and resumed his place. Philippians 2, and God has highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name that is above every name. See, what gets revealed in the incarnate servanthood of Jesus is not just a way to be human, but it's the way God is with himself. It's a permanent character trait of God himself. It's not the lack of power and some sort of form of humility. It's actually what it means to be perfect and whole. And this is part of what Jesus reveals about God to us. Many years ago, before we were going to go, we were trying to figure out which city to go to before the underground was born, and we were looking for a place to think about it or be with the poor. We were thinking about the Philippines. So I was trying to make connections with anybody in the Philippines, anybody who knew anybody in the Philippines. So I made a trip. Someone had connected me with a missionary, American missionary person. And so this was maybe even the first visit I made. So I was just trying to meet people. So we messaged, connected each other, and he said he would meet us at a certain place. And so he met us at this mall, and it was a really kind of fancy place. So that was a little weird. Missed a Starbucks or something, which that was a little weird. And then he rolls up in his Mercedes, and that was weird. And we get in his car, and then we drive to his house because he didn't want to be, I guess, out among the people or something. So we drive to his house, and it's like a gated community. So we go into this gated community, which I didn't even know existed in Metro Manila. Go in this gated community, see these like palatial mansions. I'm not exaggerating. And so, okay. And you have to, if you didn't know me then, I was definitely a harsher version of my current self. And so my patience is like almost gone completely at this point. Like, what is happening? And I'm just ready to go off. And the people I'm with are like, just calm down. Just let's hear him out. So we go inside his house. I'm not kidding. It's like Gone with the Wind. It's like a spiral, a marble spiral staircase as you come into with a pool in the back. It's incredible. And so we come in, and again, I'm just like steaming. Steam's coming out of my ears. But I'm like, okay, let's press on. He said, would you like something to drink? We say, sure, we'd love something to drink. He snaps his fingers for his Filipino servants to come and bring us drinks, at which point I say, I will pass on the drink. And he can't tell because obviously his emotional intelligence is non-existent. Um, Tim, his wife, and his like teenage daughter, I think. So I asked him this question. You guys remember this story, by the way? Does anyone remember the story? So I asked him this question, which I was asking everyone that I was meeting. I frame it this way. I did a Brian Baker question. I frame it this way. I said, I have this belief that every culture in the world reflects something good about the nature of God. It reflects the character of God in some unique way. I mean, sure, it has troubles too, struggles, but also there's something about it that it just naturally reflects in the goodness or the image or the character of God. What do you think that is for Filipinos? And his answer, if you remember the story, his answer was he could not think of anything. Right? Now, bear in mind, he had been a missionary here for 2 years. Could not think of anything. So at this point, I'm like ready to go off. The people I'm with are like looking at me like, it's time, go ahead. And he goes, yeah. And then he goes, oh, I got one. I was like, okay, he's going to redeem himself. He can't redeem himself at this point, but he's going to give it a shot. Do you know what he said? He said, they're good at serving. They're good at serving, which is actually true of Filipinos, but not what you wanted to say to me at this moment, So I said to him, and I don't want to, aggrandize myself in the telling of this story, but I said some version of like, the Son of Man came to be served, not to serve. Do you know him? Like, are you in a relationship at all with Jesus Christ? Because I apparently had just come there to amass wealth and to get more prominence and whatever. As a missionary person, he had almost no relationships, and he was not there to serve. He was there to be served. Whatever the opposite of greatness is, this guy had it in spades. He was to me and to, I think, the kingdom, insignificant. He was big in the world and small in the kingdom. Big in the world, small in the kingdom. He was not worth noting. To be great, that idea, just thought, to be a great mountain or a great peak or a great river or a great towering idea or a great life, something monumental, something worth noting. Mother Teresa lived a great life. Not because she was famous, but because she was selfless. We all know people, probably in your own life. You know somebody that lived a great life. Maybe they've gone on, but you remembered them as having lived a great life. And it's probably because they were servants. It is what makes a great life. The largeness, the significance that comes by serving, not by being served. And that's an extreme example, and that's a true story. It's real, that happens. But also, it's in all of us. Those kind of corners that we might cut in the work we do for God and the life we're trying to live. To serve the needs of others in service of the mission of God, to unveil the love of God with the heart of God. This is greatness. To serve the needs of others in service of the mission of God, in order to unveil the love of God with the heart of God. This is greatness. And a lifetime of doing that will make you big. It will make you a big deal. Big deal in heaven. But it means giving yourself away. So I want to unpack that a little bit here, and I want to unpack it by looking at Salome. I want to look at mom here. This is definitely what's been most interesting to me this time reading this text. I just finished reading Richard Rohr's book, The Divine Dance, and in it he makes this simple argument, which I hadn't really thought of or did not know. He says, like, the word person, as we use the word person, as we use it today, meaning like a separate human individual, is not really found in the Hebrew Bible at all. But the idea of face is. So stay with me. The idea of your face, of showing your face or giving your face. So Hebrew authors, they wanted to convey the effect of what he calls interface. It's like when Moses, when the law refers to Moses having a relationship that was face to face with God. This is quite remarkable and almost otherworldly. Or this the blessing in Numbers, you remember, may God let his face to shine upon you. May he lift up his face to you and give you peace. It's the same usage found throughout the Psalms, which is sometimes rendered presence. God give you his presence through the revelation, to the revealing of his face to another person. And part of what Rohr's point is that the giving of face is a transference of selfhood from one person to another. It's a way of giving ourselves to other people. To be present to a person, then, in this biblical sense, in this almost theological sense, is to give them our face, like to really make a connection with another person. It gets rendered countenance or appearance or presence or face all throughout the Bible. Of course, I studied communication in my earlier life, and we know that so much of human communication comes out of the face. Not just words, but actually most of what we understand, most of what we're reading from another person, called micro-momentary expressions. There are thousands of these little calculations that your brain is doing by looking at another person's face. Our faces are just full of information, and we're quite good at reading them. In fact, facial expressions of happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, disgust are the same across all cultures. No matter what the language is, all of us can read the same things in each other's faces. How is that even possible? How is that real? I think part of the reason why is because our faces tell the true story of our hearts. There is this, conduit, this truthfulness, this openness, this honesty that our faces reveal. You know what I'm talking about. When you ever had an argument with somebody, they tell you they're sorry, but their face is not saying they're sorry. You know what I mean? Their tone, whatever, it's just not necessarily saying you're sorry. You know there's a truthfulness. We have a thing like, are you okay? And the person says, I'm fine. And then you say, tell your face. Have you heard that? Because your face is saying you're not fine. Doesn't matter what you say, really, your face tells the truth. Personhood, then, wholeness. Even the word persona, which is Latin derivative, persone, which is like the sound that comes out. To be a person, then, is to sound from yourself through your face. This is what it means to become a person. And that's interesting because the modern word person has almost meant this like siloed, solitary thing that doesn't need other people. But actually, the concept itself is rooted in the idea of sharing it with another person. In other words, it's not possible to be a person without sounding through your face to another. To be heard somehow. The Greek word prosporon, which is the word where we get face, that's all throughout the New Testament, literally is a mask. It's like a theater. It's the thing you put on that you show people about yourself. And it doesn't mean you're hiding, but it means this is who I'm going to give to you. This is myself that I can show you. And this idea of not just serving, but becoming a servant. So stay with me. This is going to connect. This is going to make sense. Don't doubt me. Well, hopefully it'll connect. Hopefully it'll make sense. Don't just serve, but be a servant. This idea of becoming a slave, a bond slave. And of course, it's not the same as the transatlantic or chattel slavery or something where you just get ripped from your home or something. That, of course, did happen and does continue to happen in the world. But this is something quite different. It's essentially, the difference in words here is like diakonos, which is like a person who serves, and doulos, which is like a person that chooses a life of servitude. And so it's about probably a better rendering is bond slave, because a bond slave or bond servant is a person that says, I worked for Lindsay, she's great, happy to serve her, the mission that we're on together, whatever. But then one day I wake up and go, there's nowhere else I want to be. And so for the rest of my life, I want to serve her. Serve. Sounds good, doesn't it? You're like, let's go. Yeah. That to say, I want to bond myself to you. And the only way that you can become a bondservant is to give that master your face. You can serve another person without looking at them. We do it all the time. Serving people can actually be a way of getting out of intimacy. Martha, just get busy and help do things, but not look people in the eye, not make actual human connection. But to become a slave of a person, to become a slave of all, to become a slave to the church or the mission of God or the calling that He has in your life is to give those people your face, the fullness of who you are, as best you can. It means giving people your presence, access to your heart. It means collecting people and being collected by them. I just read this week, I guess it was a bit of a parenting classic, although I had not read it until now, a book called Hold On to Your Kids. Has anyone read this book? It's essentially about attachment. He makes a very strong and very long argument. Gordon Newfield and Gabor Mate make this argument that we parents need to have the primary attachment with their kids, not peers. So it's an argument against peer attachment over parent attachment, all the way to adulthood. That all kinds of things go wrong when our kids primarily attach to immature people, which is what other kids are. No offense to the kids in the room. But if you're offended, it's because you're immature and you don't understand anyway. So you're just proving my point. So it's quite meaty and thorough and thoughtful, and it's fine. And I'm not trying to argue for or against his thesis, but I will say this. He has this beautiful idea of collecting your kids, collecting them. So I just want to share it with you because I think it gives us a little metaphor here. By the way, Kiro's here in the back there. That's grandson number 1. Yeah, he won't look at me. So this is an example. He's quite good at this, but Levi, his brother, is quite difficult. I'm always trying to collect him. And I'll explain that in a second. I'm always trying to collect him. And the way you do it is by giving him your face and asking for his face. It's very hard to get him to do it. He doesn't want to do it. But this is what these authors say. The first step in the attachment dance, it's wonderful. Just soak this up. The first step in the attachment dance is to gather your child. You might gather them daily and repeatedly until they're old enough to function as independent beings. The good news is that nature is already provided. The first step, he says, in courtship with our children is to attract their attention, which can be done by smiling and making eye contact. Courtship with your children. Isn't that wonderful? By smiling and making eye contact. He goes on, the collecting dance is important for building a relationship with your child. It can be done by simply engaging them in interaction, a hand on their shoulder, until eyes are engaged. Their smiles are forthcoming, their nods are working. We build routines, and this is the line. This is where this comes from. We build routines of collecting our children into our daily lives. Collecting our children into our daily lives. It's especially important to reconnect them after any sort of emotional separation. Anyway, I'm quite moved by that thought, that phrase of being collected or collecting people. Saying, where'd you go? You went off. Come back. Let me gather you. Let me bring you back to myself. And the only way to do that is to give them your face and to receive their face. I took Levi's head in my hands this morning because he doesn't want to do it. He wants to be a dinosaur. He wants to eat things or crush things. And I want him to see me and I want to see him. I want to say to him something. You're important. You're loved. And the squirminess of that, the the evasiveness of that is rooted in something quite broken. We all struggle. If I had time, I'd make you look at each other. All it takes is 10, 15 seconds of trying to look another person in the eye. And you realize just how broken we are, how difficult it is to give another person your face. And this is why, to me, Salome is a kind of hero in this story. Because, yeah, her kids are there. And some things you need to know about Salome. First of all, she is a disciple. She is there. She is following them. She's running around. So if kids thought they were free of mom when they followed Jesus, that has not been the case because Salome's around. Church history regards her as the sister of Mary, Jesus' mother. And if that's true, she's his aunt. She raises these two boys, which Jesus would perhaps jokingly call the sons of thunder. And she is almost certainly one of the funders of the group. So poor Zebedee is back at home, shucking fish still. The boys are gone. Mom's gone. He's just paying for it, you know. He's funding it. But good for him, too. What a guy. But Salome's there. She's raised two killer boys that, and you need to understand, the disciples are teenagers. The disciples are teenagers. We don't know for sure, but it's somewhere between 15 and 20 years old. That's how old they are. Peter's a little bit older, probably is the only one. The rest of them are all teenagers. And so mom's around, yeah. But my favorite part of the story, I don't know if you saw this, but she kneels down to Jesus to get his attention, to talk to him. I don't know. She kneels down, it says. Salome kneels down. Why? To get face to face with Jesus. She's literally seeking his face, his attention, his service to her. And you can miss it because there's so much else going on, but there's that little line there. It's just there waiting for us to notice, which Jesus says to her, "What do you want?" He's there to serve her. He is not contradicting what he says he came to do or who he is. And even within the story, there's a unity, there's a clarity that Jesus has always been there, not to be served, but to serve. And so it's not a problem for Salome to get down and to want to give him her face and to look into his face and to find out what his intentions are, to find out what he's willing to do for her sons. And he has no problem with that. In fact, he's like, "What do you need? What can I do? How can I help you?" All of the awkwardness that we put onto this text comes from us. It's transference from us. It's nothing to do with her, and it's nothing to do with him. The Son of Man, we learn in this text, did not come to serve, but to be served, and so he is there to serve her. And it's easy to miss, but he wants to help her. He wants to give her. He's predisposed to serve her. And so he gives her first his face. This is my point. This is all I really want to say. It's to be great, we have to be servants, but to be servants, we have to give people ourselves. We have to give people our presence. Not just our money, not just our time, not just reluctantly doing things for them that we don't want to do, but to give people your face. This is where servanthood starts. This is what it means to be a bond servant. It's to give people the fullness of your presence, to give them your face, to make your face to shine upon people. So incredible, to think Paul saying, "For God who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' has made his light to shine in our hearts, his light to shine in our hearts, to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face Christ Jesus. The knowledge of the glory of God displayed in the face of Christ Jesus. I think Salome is looking for the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ Jesus. Good for her. She wants her boys to be great. I think her deeper longing, which I appreciate the mother's perspective, I think her deeper longing is not for power for her boys, but it's for greatness. She just doesn't know that greatness doesn't come through power. She thinks greatness comes by being assigned a position. She's still a product of this world. And so she thinks, well, I want my boys to be great, so surely they need to be given positions of power over other people. And Jesus is like, that's a good heart. And what she really wants is not for them to be powerful, but for them to be wonderful, for them to be big. And Jesus almost certainly appreciates that heart, and it's his heart for them too. And so he gives her his face. He collects her in this moment. He gathers her to himself. And do you know that she's listed as one of the very few who are there for him at the cross? When all these boys run away, Salome is there. Because there's an intimacy. And has he not done this for us? Is this not what the incarnation means? That he came to serve us, to not be served by us, but to serve us. He came to reveal the face of God to us, to gather us to himself and to the Father. You know, the story of C.S. Lewis's conversion, he was friends with J.R. Tolkien. And Tolkien was a believer before Lewis was. And Tolkien kept trying to convince Lewis, but Lewis's primary objection was, even if there was a God, the nature of what it means to be God is so totally other than human beings. There would be no way for us as human beings to have any kind of ability to understand or know or interact with God. The realities are so separated that it would be impossible for us to know him. It's an epistemological problem. There's no way we could know him. If there is such a thing as a God, he would be so distant, so other than us, there would be no way for us to know him. And Lewis, his argument to Tolkien was it would be equivalent to, it would be just like one of the characters in one of your books having a relationship with you as the author. It's impossible. You live in two totally different realities. You know, how could Boromir know Tolkien? The worlds could not connect. They're impossible to know. And of course, I don't know, the genius of Lewis, he's sort of wandering around one day thinking about his own argument against it. And it occurs to Lewis himself, it occurs to him, unless Tolkien wrote himself into the story. That would change it. So the only way then, and suddenly it becomes clear, doesn't it? If Tolkien became a character in the story, they can know him. This is what God does in Jesus. He writes himself into the story of human beings. He's written himself into your story so that we could see his face. And before we finally one day do see him face to face, we could see his persona through the face that we could understand, through a face that we could perceive. And that face takes the shape of a servant. This is the face of Christ Jesus. One day, guys, one day we will all finally see him fully face to face. He will give us his full face. but in some limited way now. Of course, that has happened. We've seen his face in Christ Jesus, but more is yet to come, more is promised. And he has collected you, but one day he will collect you fully once and for all, and he will give you the fullness of his face. Serving is one thing, being a servant is another. And it's fundamentally, I believe, about presence. Because that's the way Jesus did it. He became present in our story. He presented himself to us, and we have to do the same to present ourselves to other people. Guys, as I think back on the relational landscape of my own life, and I look at the people I've lost, or maybe don't like me anymore, something like that, I wonder, as you do, you wonder, how did I fail them? Where did I go wrong? And in that assessment, I guess the only thing I can be sure about, the only thing that gives me solace, is if I can say, I served them. And I was truly present to them. And then I feel okay. I feel at peace. I've done a lot of things as a leader, moves I've made that people have clapped for me, written things, said things, made decisions, taken risks. And all of those things, I'm just not so sure how they'll stack up in eternity. What other people thought was good versus what actually was or wasn't meaningful. But this I know. If and when and how I've ever served a person, that counts. That matters. And it matters to me. It's the version of myself I like best. And so even though I don't think I'm particularly predisposed to be a servant person, it's who I most like being. It's who I've most tried to be. I can still remember the first time I was ever referred to by someone as a servant, in a positive, in a moment of whatever appreciation or celebration. I was probably 30, and it was quite moving. It was my supervisor for InterVarsity, and I was 10 years on staff or whatever it was, being appreciated, and he said, something people don't know about Brian is that he's a servant. And I was just like so choked up. Nothing else that was said meant something to me, partly because I think, no, that's something I can do. I don't know if I can be a great communicator. I don't know if I can be a great leader. I don't know if I can raise a lot of money. I don't know if I can be this incredible gatherer that gets all these people together, has all this fruit, or makes all this difference, or whatever we think the metrics are of success in ministry. I just don't know if I'm going to have what it takes to do any of those things. But I can do that. I can serve people. I can do that. And then it's also the realization that you come to where you realize there's some things you just want to hear said about you when you're dead. Like you won't, I suppose, but it's something you want to hear people say about you in reflection, And I would love to hear people say in their assessment of me someday, whenever, he loved people. He was a servant. He was a genius. No, that last one's not important. It's not important. Just to say that, yeah, he served us. The other day I was at the Restore store on Waters, or wherever that is. And they didn't have what I needed, so I was like, so I was sort of wandering the parking lot for a second. I was like, do I want to go to Wawa's? Because Wawa's it's always drawing you. It's like a siren song. You don't know why. You don't really want anything from there, but maybe a pretzel, maybe a drink, I don't know what you get, sandwich, whatever. So I just kind of wander over into the Wawa area, literally with no reason. And so I'm not trying to be overly spiritual, but there's part of me is like, am I supposed to be standing here? I don't know what's going on. And there was a woman sitting there, obviously a little disheveled, sunburnt. And she had a bunch of coffee cups, kind of empty coffee cups lined up. She said, excuse me, come over here. And so I came over. She was quite clear in what she needed. She's like, can you get me a cup of coffee, or get me? I forget exactly how it came. It came quite strong. The need was clearly articulated to me that she wanted some coffee, and something about it in the moment, I just felt like. So I don't know how to say it. Just happy to know my assignment, or I don't know. I was sort of wandering the parking lot. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to get you coffee. Like that's my thing. That's my whole purpose in life. Has been like consolidated this moment. It was truly magical. So I go inside. And I just want to confess this. I have never made anyone coffee ever. I've never poured coffee for someone. I don't think. I've never made coffee. I don't know what you put inside it. I'm completely lost. It's something to do with some dirt and hot water. I don't know what else goes on. Never made coffee. I don't drink coffee. Other people do it. They don't want you to do it. I get it. And the dumber you get at a thing over the course of your life, the less people ask you to do it. It's a genius move, by the way. If you just, well, what is that? And then forget it. I'll do it myself. So I've never made anyone coffee ever. So I go in and she tells me exactly what she wants, exactly what's supposed to be inside it, all that stuff. The kind, I guess there's lots of different kinds of creamer. There's like flavors of creamer. And so to know the exact kind of flavor creamer she wanted and the amount of sugars and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, great. So I go inside. Guys, I was just so happy to do this. I don't know how to explain it. It was like my whole life, maybe it's because I have too many things going on or too many possibilities of what I could be doing in any given moment. And just to feel this profound sense of like, this is exactly what I'm meant to do right now in this moment. And at least for the next minute or two, I'm pleasing God. I don't know how it is, what it is to say. I was so happy. It took my time, poured it slowly. I felt the cup. Got her the big one. I didn't know if she wanted that, but I was like, what's the biggest one? And then I just figured it out and I poured it. It's quite easy, by the way, Wawa, which you're all laughing at me now, but I put the stuff in, stirred it, cap on, felt good about it, got some napkins, walked out. And I delivered her coffee, and I just thought it wasn't about her. I mean, I was glad to have done a thing for a person. She was valuable to God, and so on. It makes me think of this phrase in Lewis's The Weight of Glory. He calls it the specific pleasure of the inferior. The specific pleasure of the inferior. He says this: apparently, what I had mistaken for humility had all these years prevented me from understanding was what was in fact the humblest and most childlike and most creaturely of pleasures. This might relate to what Hannah was talking about being a child. The most creaturely of pleasures. He says the specific pleasure of the inferior, the pleasure of a beast before men, of a child before his father, of a pupil before his teacher, of a creature before its creator. I'm not forgetting how horribly this most innocent desire is parodied in our human ambitions, or how quickly, in my own experience, the lawful pleasure of praise from those whom it was my duty to please turns into deadly poison of self-admiration. But I thought I could detect for a moment, this is how I felt. I thought I could detect for a moment, a very, very short moment, before this happened and during which the satisfaction of having pleased those whom I rightly loved and rightly feared was pure. And that is enough to raise our thoughts to what may happen when the redeemed soul, incredible connection here from this mundane act of just rightly serving another person, to be inferior for a moment and to feel the pleasure of that inferiority of saying, I am meant to give you, I'm meant to serve you. And now everything is rightly aligned in a sense in the world in that one moment. And that is enough, he says, to raise our thoughts to what may happen when the redeemed soul, beyond all hope of nearly beyond all belief, learns at last that she has pleased him whom she was created to please. That in the stringing together of a life of little acts of inferiority, of service, of saying your need matters more than my own in this one moment, the whole act of stringing those together somehow then creates a life that is big enough to be recognized by God as something that pleased him. I want to just end with this thought. I wanted to say to everybody as leaders, I know you're leaders, I know many of you do important things and you lead important things and blah, blah, blah. I just want to say, simplify your life. All of us are capable of serving other people. but be a servant. Be available. Give yourself, your face to the people around you. This is what the Son of Man did. I'll end with this story. I was on a plane recently, transatlantic flight. And, people come ready to sleep on these planes because you're meant to sleep on the way over. Yeah, thanks, Emma. Good. And so sometimes people are in their sweats or whatever. And so a guy came, I don't know, late 50s probably. Yeah, a bit odd looking, if I'm honest. Kind of, I don't want to go into too much detail, show my biases, but sandals, ponytail, whatever. Shorts. But what really caught my eye was he had this doll in his bag, and the doll was quite large. It was probably this big, and it was like sticking up out of the bag because it couldn't fit in a bag. It was just too large, too awkward. But what you need to know about this doll is that, and I immediately recognized I didn't know exactly where it came from. I had to do a little thinking or a little research. But there's a famous old anime called Spirited Away. Has anyone ever seen that movie? And there's a character in Spirited Away, this creepy ghost character in the movie, which is almost like a horror. I don't know what this movie is about. It's hard to understand. I read a bunch of Reddit. I don't feel any smarter. I still don't understand it. But this is the doll that he had. So can we put the doll? Can you put it's just the ghost character first? This is the character from. Is it up there? Okay, so that's the character. And so he had a doll, and you could show, I think I have a picture of the actual, of a doll. It was similar to this. I'd say about twice this size of this doll. And it's just sticking up out of his bag. It was quite off-putting. And so I just thought, what's going on there? Maybe it's for a friend or something. But guys, throughout the whole course of the very long overnight flight, he had to hold it with him the whole time. So he took it out of his bag and he held it. He was like, nursing it, nurturing it. I realized, he brought it on the flight in his bag because he could not be separated from this thing. It was quite sad and weird and off-putting. And I just kept thinking, this is odd. And what's going on here? And for some reason, I thought of that last night. And I thought, I should tell that story. And I was like, why should I tell that story? There's no point in telling that story. Except that I just thought it was kind of sad. Like, man, I don't know, there's a search for intimacy there or something. And to feel you need your little doll. And this is the creepy doll from Spirited Away or whatever. Anyway, so I looked up the doll or the character. Do you know what the character's called? Does anyone know what it's called? It's called No Face. It's called No Face. And it's hard to explain exactly what the character does or what it means in the movie, but essentially it is a void. It represents an emptiness, a loneliness of the character. It consumes things. It can't say anything unless it eats something else. So it eats that thing and spits it out. It's some kind of symbol of loneliness, of neglect, of loss, of emptiness. And literally the creator of the film gives it the name No Face. And we seek intimacy from something that has no face. It's just how sad it is. And as awkward as that seemed to me and as sort of desperate as that man looked to me, I can't help but think that we're all a little bit like that. This is the dark irony. Maybe we don't do it as publicly or desperately, but surely we all do it. We look for attachment to something that has no face to give us. We look for wholeness. We look for our future. We look for things that define us or make us feel like we're valuable or we matter or life counts from things that have no face to give us. Trying to find identity in what we consume. Guys, this is the last thing I'll say. Idols have no face. Power has no face. Fame has no face. Success has no face. Money has no face. And we can seek those things, but we'll never find a home there. They are idols. They cannot speak. They cannot love us back. But people, other human beings made in the image of God, have faces to give us. And they can be collected by us, and we can collect them into our lives. Serve people. Church has a face to give, reflecting the image of God in it. Serve the church. And God himself, of course, has a face. And to see it finally and fully, to have everything you've ever thought you wanted in the seeing of it, is to see everything clearly. And it is actually, as we're promised at the end of the books, to reign forever. It is, in all irony of ironies, to finally come into the fullness of the power you thought you wanted. And this is from those last lines of the book of Revelation: no longer will there be any curse. And the throne of God and the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will serve him. And this verse 4, he says, and they will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. And there will be no more night, and no more need for the light of the lamp and the light of the sun, for the Lord God will give them light, and they will reign forever and ever. Let's pray.